We've hit a wall in Western entertainment with all the sequels and reboots and franchises and adaptations that are proving that we are stagnated and out of ideas. Audiences are increasingly relying on prestige filmmakers like Christopher Nolan to quote-unquote save cinema. But Nolan's Odyssey adaptation, which comes out at the end of this week at the time of this video, is shaping up to prove how even those guys are missing the point and why the cultural renaissance that we're looking for might still be a long way away. What I mean is, because we live in Western civilization, we're sitting on a goldmine of stories and heroes and events and ideas to inspire us to tell great stories, and everyone, including the best storytellers like Nolan, have politely declined to care. You might ask, how can you even say that when he's literally adapting the Odyssey, one of the most revered and ancient stories ever written? Sure, yeah, but he's not adapting it so much as he's absorbing it. See, the debate about historical accuracy surrounding the Odyssey, which has been raging since literally the first production stills dropped, has been dismissed by a lot of people because it's just like, well, how can you care about a myth's historical accuracy? But that's kind of retarded, I'm sorry to say. That's an example of the space wizard's fallacy, which goes back to the festering wound in Western media called The Last Jedi. What I mean is that some defenders of that movie, people who thought that this was a groundbreaking masterpiece, and some of them, not all of them, would dismiss any criticism about some technical or in-universe thing like these bombers move slow or the Holdo maneuver kind of breaks canon by saying, "Why do you take this seriously? It's a movie about space wizards." It's a profound work of art when I want to praise it to the skies, but it's just some turn your brain off dumb fun when you have a problem with it. Do you see what I mean? Unlike Rian Johnson, who wanted to critically examine and deconstruct not Star Wars, I think, but actually the fandom, Nolan clearly likes the Odyssey, but it feels like he's only half paying attention to it, and he got distracted by himself. It's like when you're telling someone a story and they're only kind of paying attention to you, but they hear a few things that you say and move the conversation to what they really care about. Because Nolan is a prestige director with an established set of aesthetics and values, he couldn't just adapt the Odyssey, but he had to make it Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. Much like James Gunn seems to have done with Supergirl. Except, well, it's going to be a good movie because it's Nolan, but it looks like it won't be a very faithful adaptation. There are certain creative liberties that any director is going to take with an adaptation like this, but Nolan is just taking a few too many. He's doing inflammatory, diverse casting. He's thrown any sense of authenticity or historicity to the wind with the props, the settings, and the costumes. He's using very modern dialect.
You're pining me for a daddy.
He's incorporating modern music. He seems to be setting aside the story and the storyteller's views in favor of his own interpretation. People will always complain about stuff like this, but I think you can safely get away with maybe 2 of these things at a time without kicking up a hornet's nest. Like, if Lupita Nyong'o was Helen of Troy, but everything looked very Greek, it would be annoying to some people, but it wouldn't cause this much of a firestorm. Like I said, Nolan is absorbing the Odyssey, really, instead of adapting it. Instead of allowing the vibrancy of the setting to shine through, he has to make everything his millennial gray Apple Store aesthetic, which works for some of his movies. All of the costumes are what you might call fantasy slop. Just, it is ridiculous.
Daddy, you're not even trying!
I would say that they look video gamey, but look at, I don't know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey and how well it makes the whole Greek world set and setting work. It balances authenticity with the rule of cool and all that. So there's not really an excuse. You can pull it off. All of this might feel like minor detail stuff, but they kind of just give away the whole attitude of disinterest. There's no reason why a filmmaker of Christopher Nolan's caliber, with a movie basically made on a blank check, couldn't just have invested the research time to really get those details right, unless it tells us that he just didn't see the point. And I don't attribute this to malice or stupidity. I think he's just making a sincere attempt, and like I said, he's sort of half paying attention. I bet I'm gonna like a lot of the stuff. I actually like a lot of the casting. Like, I think Matt Damon and Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway are gonna do great. I'm sure the story is going to be well told, whatever it is, but nevertheless. Obviously, I think Nolan really likes the plot of the Odyssey, and maybe he really likes what you might call the universal values that people have identified in the story for millennia at this point. It's about homecoming, it's about growing up, masculinity and femininity, the decline of civilizations, the pitfalls of human nature, a post-war society, the dichotomy between fate and chance, the limits of mortality, and how human beings relate to the divine. But apparently he wasn't interested in Homer's specific world. The Odyssey is a myth, and a myth that's been carefully passed down for some time. But it's a Greek myth. It does have universal or human values, but it's equally essential to realize that those universal values are nested in the specific values of a specific culture at a specific time, and that's equally as important. To really appreciate and understand how universal some of these things are, you have to have a sense of wonder, or at least a vague interest in how different that time and culture is from our own. That wonder, that interest in times and cultures not our own, is what's missing. That's why the tagline of Defy the Gods is so ridiculous, because there's nothing further from the text. And that's the thing that worries me most, honestly. Now, Nolan is not alone in this attitude. The recent Wuthering Heights adaptation by Emerald Fennell doesn't seem to care that Wuthering Heights is a Victorian novel written by an Anglican Englishwoman. No, it's an adaptation of the sweaty romanticy vibes that she got from it when she was in high school. Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride claims to be the Frankenstein story that Mary Shelley would have told had she been free from the patriarchy. But based on the movie, Maggie doesn't know a thing about the Romantic period. This is why Greta Gerwig's upcoming Narnia adaptation is setting off alarm bells for people. For no explicable reason, she's trying to make The Magician's Nephew rock and roll and set in the 1950s instead of the early 1900s. Leonardo da Vinci, the painter and turtle, said that artists have to be students of nature, and that advice can be translated pretty easily into narrative arts like literature and film and TV. You have to be a student of the great art that's come before, the definitive entries into the genre, especially if you're doing an adaptation. You should not treat the story like it's just a list of bullet points that you can infuse with whatever meaning you want. The storyteller and the audience might actually get a lot out of being confronted with ideas and values from older cultures, the ones that predate but are foundational to our own, like the ancient Greeks, that don't conform to your worldviews. You might be forced to discuss, to debate, to open your mind a bit and close it on some new conclusions. Let's go back to Defy the Gods. If you've ever read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you might be aware that it's kind of uncomfortable, the reverence that these characters have for the gods, which seem to really not care about them. But why not actually investigate and discuss that? Why were the ancient Greeks so devoted to gods they believe kind of treated them like trash? What made that view make sense? Instead, Nolan is just sort of saying, well, Odysseus would react like a postmodern philosopher and say,
"The gods told you."
Then I defy the gods.
and this is why we're stagnating in entertainment, which is, of course, just a symptom of cultural stagnation in a lot of ways. Our artists and storytellers, the ones that get a lot of money, are only interested in their own ideas. Like I said, they're only half listening. They can't learn from Homer or Bronte or Shelley or C.S. Lewis. They can only absorb and bastardize them. I hate to say it about Nolan because he's one of the greats, but he missed an opportunity here. We're all looking for this filmmaking renaissance that's going to save movies. But the essence of a renaissance is looking backwards at the good stuff that was forgotten. Like I said, what's called the, Western canon or whatever is a goldmine of inspiration, but only if you're willing to dig into it and understand it on its own terms. Until we have storytellers that do that, we're just going to keep dealing with all this stuff that we keep complaining about. Unfortunately, it's just kind of not likely that anyone right now is going to do that because they've been trained and disincentivized from ever doing that by a form of progressivism, which is moral progressivism, which is the belief that morals work like technology, that they necessarily improve with updates over time. Because it's current year, our moral values are better than last year. And therefore, we shouldn't just ignore, but we gotta condemn the past. We can never truly try to understand why older cultures and older versions of our own culture believed the things that they did and had the customs that they did. We can only condemn them for not being good enough, like us. We can only accept them if we update them for modern audiences. We have to cut out, edit, revise, lie about the past before we can stomach it. It's a shame, really, because shows like Game of Thrones and Succession prove that those modern audiences are perfectly willing to invest in a story about a world of values far different than ours. Values that we may even think are bad, but don't get in the way of a compelling narrative, and in fact, make the narrative compelling. Like what happens when a pond is cut off from a flowing water source, it just stagnates and it gets diseased. Or like if you train an AI to tell you what you want to hear, and then it tells you what you want to hear, and then you're like shocked, like, oh my gosh, the AI is so smart. It's the ultimate recipe for just not going anywhere fast. And it's the problem with Western culture. And instead of pushing forward into newer and newer values, we actually might need to stop. Because we just keep talking to ourselves. We keep cutting ourselves off from good ideas, from good stories, from good values that were contained in the past and better expressed in the past. I'm not saying that we need to revive every ancient or medieval or early modern attitude, but there's a lot there that was good. And one of the best things about good entertainment is that, well, yes, it entertains you, it's fun, but it also allows you to have those discussions. That's a tradition that goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks and even before, and so we should really start doing that again now. It's a shame that Nolan kind of isn't doing that by giving us a faithful study of the Odyssey in a certain way. He can do what he wants, he's got the money, but still, kind of sucks. Anyways, I'm gonna see it, so I'll let you know how it is when I do. Thanks, and God bless.